Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So I'm coming to you from Baker, California, and right there, the world's tallest thermometer. So I wasn't really, I didn't really want to talk about the world's tallest thermometer, but since it's there, really what I want to talk about is some awesome discovery right here at the Del Taco in Baker. So I went in and I got my Prime shirt on, and I ordered some food and I was going to get a large drink. There's the front of the restaurant, and you can see like there's trucks around. It's like truck friendly, but also it's not only truck friendly, it's driver friendly. And what I mean by that is that when I went in, I'm like, hey, can I get a small drink? He looked at my shirt. He's like, oh, are you a trucker? I said, yeah. He pulls out the biggest cup, a plastic cup. Let me show you this cup. I set it down here for a second, but it's big. And it's a big Del Taco cup. And he was like, yeah, you're a CDL holder. You get a drink for free. And he goes, I saved you about $4, which is probably true. So, if you're passing on I-15 through Baker and you want some food anyway, check out the Del Taco because you get free drinks and free refills and everything. So anyway, let's talk about some other stuff. Okay, so I'm back. We're actually in Salt Lake City right now. Just got my truck serviced. We're getting ready to grab a load here in Utah. Going to be heading to South Carolina. So there were a couple of things I wanted to talk about. The first thing is that the Texas GOP, and normally I wouldn't comment on stuff that's kind of a political platform, but since this is something that could affect all Americans, and I do have a sense of history about this, I wanted to talk about the GOP, Texas GOP plank, or policy statement from their convention on the idea that Texas should secede from the United States. So let me say this at the outset. The United States is, as the title implies, a group of states, and it's made up from a group of states, right? 50 states, plus the District of Columbia. And, we've obviously had states secede in the past, and it led to a really big-ass war. Over the years, I've heard, people talking about, different states or different parts of states seceding. And I wanted to talk about that in terms of what does it really mean. Now, let me say this. If Texas were to secede, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't think in this day and age, I don't think there's a compelling reason to have Texas in the Union. But I would say that about almost any state. There's not a compelling reason to have a state in the Union. Now, if a state like Nebraska wanted to secede, and they ended up being kind of like Swaziland is in South Africa, like completely surrounded by a sovereign nation. I mean, I think that would be difficult for residents of Nebraska, and it'd be kind of weird. But Texas is on the border, right? Texas is not landlocked. They could be their own, nation, right? I think, I think if Texas were to secede, I think the best idea for us as, the rest of the United States, build a wall so people from Texas can't just come in without permission. But here's the thing these exercises by politicians, they're annoying to me because they foment seditious ideas, insurrectionist ideas, and they're antithetical to the idea of the United States and to our democracy. But let's just say that Texas does secede. And by the way, like I said, my opinion would be, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, right? And here's why. So Texas likes to talk about the fact that it has this really big economy and it contributes to, mightily to the United States economy. Well, let's talk numbers, right? So everybody probably knows that the state with the largest GDP is California, okay? And just to give you a sense of it, California's GDP is like over $2 trillion. Actually, I think it's more like 3 trillion in GDP. And GDP, gross domestic product, is just the value of all goods and services produced in that place, okay? Texas ranks number 2, but they're only about maybe 55% of what California is, and they're at like 1.7 trillion. Now that's a lot, 1.7 trillion. But there are 2 other states that are above 1 trillion. New York is at 1.5 trillion, and Florida is at like 1.1 trillion. Remember, value of goods and services. So if in Florida they sell a hotel room to some British guy, that contributes to their GDP. Okay, so given Texas's population and size, I would expect their GDP to be that good. But how does Texas rank out with other things that might matter to people that live in Texas? Well, a recent report said Texas was the 51st, in other words, dead last for child welfare. Okay, 51st. Like, they're not better than anybody, right? Even though they have this huge GDP. They get over 32% of their state budget comes from federal money. In other words, people in Montana and New Hampshire and California and Alabama are kicking in money that pays over 32% of Texas's state budget. So that money would go away. And by the way, Texas has no state income tax, right? So they'd have to figure out how to raise money. The other thing is Texas is far and away the largest recipient of Department of Defense spending by state, right? They're at $83 billion. Can you imagine what Texas's economy would look like as soon as the United States of America pulls all of its military installations and all of its military personnel and all that stuff out? There are towns all over Texas that would just dry up. Think about all the towns outside of Lackland Air Force Base, all that is kind of in San Antonio. Fort Hood. We have naval bases down there. There are several Air Force bases, several Army posts. There's, like I said, Lackland. There's Fort Bliss out in San Antonio. There's, I don't know, I can't even remember all the Air Force. Dyess Air Force Base, I think, is in Texas. I didn't look it up, but there's a ton of military bases. If we pulled all of that out, the United States said, well, we're not going to have troops stationed in Texas, right? That's a foreign country. Like Texas thinks it's got a really big thing going on, but I'm here to tell you the United States of America would be just fine without Texas, okay? But I don't think Texas, and I don't think the Texas GOP realizes how much money everybody else in America is contributing. If I pull all those military bases out of there, all the money that the federal government spends in Texas, plus all the money that those military people and their families spend in Texas, that goes away. Texas ranks, they rank low in education, in healthcare, all sorts of things. Like they would become, and by the way, they benefit from the fact that there's like free trade with every state, and the United States government make sure that their products that are being exported, it goes well, etc. But the Mexican government has already shown that they can work around Texas and still get penetration into other North American markets that it wants to be in. And a perfect example of that is that there's a new rail line that's going to go in, and it was going to go through Texas, but after Governor Abbott decided to blockade basically other trucks coming in from Mexico, the Mexican government said, fine, we'll run it through New Mexico. And if you've been out to New Mexico, there's plenty of trains out there. There's plenty of rail out there. I don't think that it's like if Texas was the entire U.S.-Mexican border, it'd be a different story. But they don't have as much power as they think they do. And if they want to run their state as their own nation, more power to them. So anyway, and by the way, just from a personal perspective, I don't make much money in Texas. I can't even think of the last time I ran through Texas. It's been a while. And I've never, in my trucking career, spent probably the most time I spent down in Texas was when I was with Knight, because Knight has a bigger presence in Texas. And I was delivering to a lot of Walmart distribution centers and stuff. So, I could definitely live without Texas. Hell, I don't even have, people are like, well, you got to drive through there. Well, actually, I don't. I mean, I've driven through that very, very far northwest corner of the Panhandle a few times on 54, but I mean, I could work around that. I'm not, the 10 has never been a big part of my trucking life, except when I was at Knight, I used to run it a little bit more. 20, same thing. It's not a big part of my life. I make my living on 70, 80, 15, that's how I make my living. And Texas isn't a big part of it for me. The other thing that's going on in Texas, by the way, and this is kind of off topic, but they're really going big into this self-driving truck thing. And the Texas DPS is working with automation companies so they can figure out how to do a traffic stop on a truck. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, once they pull it over, then what do they do? Call somebody and say, we pulled you over for this reason, you got to come out here. I don't even know what the purpose of that would be. So I don't know. But the funny thing about that is the largest occupation in Texas by name is truck driver. So I'm not really sure why Texas is all about automated trucks unless they want to put their own citizens out of work. But again, I don't understand a lot of what goes on down there. So anyway, that's my take on that in the history of it and the economics of it. And like I said, if Texas wants to go, that's fine. I mean, I used to live in Texas. One of my kids was born down there, but she's got a U.S. passport, so I think she's good. And by the way, all the people in Texas that would stick around that have paid into Social Security and stuff, they'd lose all that too. The U.S. probably would continue to make pension payments, Social Security payments to people living in Texas because they will pay you if you live in a foreign country. However, if you're a retired military and you're collecting a pension and you do something like take a job or have a job with the government of Texas, the state, let's say you're a firefighter or anything like that, you would lose your pension. Because, for instance, I can't keep my pension if I went and worked for the Canadian government. That's why, by the way, you saw that when what's his name, Mike, the guy that got convicted and pardoned by Trump. Anyway, he used to be in U.S. intelligence. I can't remember anybody's name today, but the reason he wasn't working directly for Turkey was that if he does, he'll lose his military pension. That's why he does it through a company, a consultancy that he has. But anyway, those are some things to, I guess, think about. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is this idea of a gas tax holiday. You know, a lot of people are blaming Biden for fuel prices, or blaming, you know, the Democrats because they're in the majority in the House and Senate. But here's the thing. They don't really impact fuel prices. They never have. I don't care who's the president. You know, George Bush was the president, fuel prices were really high. Obama was the president, and, you know, fuel prices dropped. You know, I remember Newt Gingrich running in 2008 saying he was going to have gas at $2 a gallon. Well, that was a stupid campaign promise because he couldn't do it. You know, it's a global market, and the president of the United States really has little control over it unless we go to some crazy tariff system or, you know, some other government interference. And here's why I mention this. You know, Biden wants to do a gas tax holiday, and unfortunately, people really do think he has control. The problem is he can't even do a gas tax holiday without Congress's approval, and it's probably not going to get approved, and I hope it doesn't. And the reason is this: we have a gas tax for a reason, and that's to supply money to upkeep America's roads and bridges, right? The roads in this country suck. If you drive a truck, you know that, right? You get beat to death on a daily basis. You buy tires, you buy suspension parts, all because, in large part, because the roads suck, okay? Chunks of my tires don't come off just because I'm driving the tire, right? It'll wear down over time, but a big chunk doesn't come out unless I hit some big ass pothole. I was going through Memphis, I don't know, a few months ago, and it was a Sunday, and there were 5 cars in 2 different spots, 3 in one spot, 2 in another, that had basically had a tire and a rim destroyed by potholes. Okay, this is on I-40. This is not some road out in Podunkville, right, that never gets any attention. This is a major interstate in America, and it's tearing up people's cars, you know, and that's why we need a gas tax, right? I'm not sure the gas tax shouldn't be higher. I mean, I wish there was way more spending on highways. It would make my life a little easier, and it'd probably make my neck less stiff. So, and here's the other thing, right? The gas tax holiday is it's like a painkiller, right? It doesn't fix the underlying problem. It just makes the pain go away for a little while. But then once you run out of the painkiller, what are you gonna do? Well, we're not gonna get addicted. We're not gonna start buying them from the guy down the street, because this painkiller requires congressional approval. Even if this 3-month thing gets approved, which I don't think it will, it's not gonna do any good, because we have to change behavior. And until behavior changes, we're not going to be able to impact the price of fuel, okay? Until more people are driving electric cars, hybrids, slowing down, driving less, you know, we're not going to be able to cut the supply or cut the amount of fuel we use. And the oil companies are not the problem here. Like ExxonMobil, Chevron, they're not the problem. They don't control it. They make more money when prices are high, but they also get beat up when prices are low. Just look at their stock prices. Going after them is pointless too. It's like, okay, they had big profits. We don't go after Walmart if they have a big profit margin on some kind of widget. Why are we going after oil companies? Because they're making more money because prices have gone up, right? they take a beating when prices are low. They make money when prices are high. That's just the market. That's how America's economy works. So anyway, not really about trucking today, but if you do get a chance, stop by the Del Taco there in Baker and enjoy yourself a free soda. Thanks. See you next time on Tim Travels.